name is Anna Trofimtchouk and I would like to talk to you about peatland conservation in Belarus. So as we all know, peatlands play a significant role in global carbon cycle and climate forming. They are the most space-effective carbon store of all terrestrial ecosystems. However, carbon is securely stored only until peatlands remain wet. As soon as we drain peatlands, it leads to a huge amount of emissions. So peatlands cover about 3% of the world and about 12% of the territory of Belarus, which makes Belarus one of the most important peatland countries of the world. Apart from acting as CO2 sinks, marshes of Belarus provide habitat for globally endangered wildlife, including globally endangered birds. 40% of global population of aquatic warbler, 10% of population of great spotted eagle, and 3% of great snipe breed on the Belarusian peatlands. So now let me tell you a little bit about the country itself. Belarus is a landlocked European country with a population of almost 9.5 million and total area of more than 200,000 square kilometers that gained its independence in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union. The political situation in Belarus is often described as the last dictatorship of Europe. Belarus is a challenging place to be a civil activist and to do conservation in particular. However, we just have no choice. The species are disappearing, habitats are degrading, and we have to find ways to work under any political regimes now. During the Soviet times, almost 1.5 million hectares were drained for agriculture, forestry, and peat extraction. This is more than half of all the peatlands of the country. However, later large areas of drained peatlands became abandoned. Over time, drained and disrupted peatlands changed from being carbon sinks to carbon source. Such a scale of peatland drainage puts Belarus on the 8th position for drainage-related carbon dioxide emissions from peat degradation in the world. Another consequence of degradation of peatlands is peat fires. Peatland fires can be responsible for extra CO2 emissions and cause social and economic emergencies. Yearly, Belarus had about 2,000 to 3,000 forest fires. So what did we do with all that? Actually, in 2005, as part of cooperation between the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, BirdLife Belarus and the National Academy of Science of Belarus, a new approach was suggested to deal with fires, rewetting of degraded peatlands, which was completely new for the country at that time. It was proposed as a win-win solution for multiple problems that degraded peatlands were causing, because eventually to return water to the area was to return life to peatlands. The first peatland restoration project started in Belarus in 2006 with a project targeted of 17 sites in 4 years. This was followed by several other large-scale peatland restoration projects. In some easy places, the wetting work was done manually, but most of the time it required heavy machinery to fill in drainage channels or build dams on them. So these physical barriers prevented water from leaving the peatland, and over time hydrological regime restores, allowing wildlife to return and preventing the area from drying and burning during the summers. In 2019, restoration activities covered over 62,000 hectares of degraded peatlands. Every second hectare of these restored peatlands in Belarus were restored in frames of projects by BirdLife Belarus with the help of multiple international donors. However, a challenging task for conservation at some point was to ensure a qualitative shift from rather opportunistic project-dependent work on restoration to the creation of a legal framework for a strategic peatland management that would be recognized and supported by the government. The framework was supposed to answer several questions. First one was to how to restore effectively. The answer was found in the Code of Standard Practice of Peatland Restoration that was issued and was the first piece of environmental legislation that has been developed in Belarus. It assembled all the best practices gained over years of restorations. The next questions were where to restore and where to protect. The strategy for conservation and sustainable use of peatlands answered this question. The strategy signified the commitment of Belarusian government that was making in the field. It listed all the peatlands of the country and allocated them into areas of use: agriculture, restoration, conservation, which gave a really good balance for the economic interest of peat mining industry and conservation. And finally, all the above was assembled in the law. The final piece of environmental legislation was called the Law on the Protection of and Use of Peatlands. It has been adapted in 2019, and the new bill was an unprecedented not only in the former Soviet Union countries but also in Europe. And it became a legal framework for peatland restoration and protection in the country. So in my opinion, the success of the conservation work was not only in the amount of hectares returned to nature, but also in lobbying the government and to admit the importance of peatlands and their restoration and to invest in legislation. So, looking at all the conservation challenges that are in Belarus right now, peatlands' future seemed the most optimistic to me. Even though a lot of damage had been done, now the legal framework ensures that nothing bad will happen to the remaining bits in the future. And as for the damaged peatlands, there is a balanced strategy of restoration that ensures sustainable rewetting of degraded land. I believe that's a very optimistic outcome that countries with the similar problems can learn from us. Thank you.